When filming video, it's really important to get the correct shutter speed for the frame rate that you're filming at. This is known as the 180-degree rule, and it will ensure that you get good motion blur in your footage. This has come from the shutter mechanisms on old movie cameras. This mechanism would consist of a spinning disc, half of which is missing. And this is where the 180 degrees comes from. When the missing half was over the film, this would give the camera the exposure that it needed. When the solid part of the disc is over the film, this would give the camera the chance to move the film to the next frame. If you speed this up to 24 frames a second, this is how an old movie camera works. As a full rotation of this disc equates to the time it takes from the start of one frame right through to the start of the next frame, this means that half of the frame rate would equate to the shutter speed. Now I hope that that made sense. If it doesn't, click on the eye in the corner. This will take you to a video going into more depth on this subject. It's really interesting and it shows you a lot of the history of film and video. So if we break that down some more, shutter speed refers to the time that the shutter is open for each frame. Frames per second, or FPS, equates to the amount of times that frame opens and closes each second. If you set your shutter to a really fast speed, you'll get a kind of staccato look. And this is great for action scenes or you want the action to look fast and frantic. This technique was famously used in the movie Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg went for a much faster shutter speed to give that hectic and frantic look. For normal filming and to get good looking video with, dare I say it, that cinematic look, you want to get good motion blur in your film. So whatever your frames per second rate is, make sure your shutter speed is half that. Say for instance, if you're shooting at 25 frames a second, this means that every 25th of a second, a new frame will start. You want to set your shutter speed to half this, so 1/50th of a second. If you're shooting at 30 frames a second, make sure your shutter speed is at 1/60th of a second. Say if you're shooting slow motion at 120 frames a second, you need to make sure your shutter speed is at or very near 1/240th of a second. Although saying that, with slow motion, normally you're shooting action, and you might want to bring up your shutter speed to an even faster pace, but just make sure you've got enough light. But that's a subject for another day. This rule also applies to time lapses. Whenever I'm shooting a 1 frame a second time lapse, I'll make sure that my shutter speed is half a second by using an ND filter or making sure I'm shooting at the right time of the day to be able to get a half-second exposure. It's not a hard and fast rule, just more of a guideline. You may have different reasons for shooting with higher shutter speeds, from getting that fast, gritty look, right through to forgetting your ND filter. But when you can, remember the 180-degree rule and it'll give you much better looking footage. For more videos, subscribe and make sure you hit the notification bell. Also, head over to my YouTube channel where I have a growing library of tutorials. I'll see you next time.